So Judy, you're from Midland. Are you originally from Midland? Is that where you grew up, or did you have to like come and build like a whole new friend group?
So I grew up in a little town about 45 minutes from Midland called Andrews. It's only got about, I think it's like 15,000 people. And then for college, I moved to the Odessa, Midland area, lived in Oklahoma a little bit, and then when me and my husband got married, we decided to move to Midland.
Okay, so definitely the general region of Midland. Okay, cool. So tell us a little bit, just give us the spill on your business. What's it looking like? When did you get into the business? All of that.
So I got licensed in October of 2017. Obviously, getting licensed at that point, I didn't have like any business as far as 2017 went. I didn't close any deals in that. So my first full year in business would have been 2018. I started independent. I had a friend that was on the BKT team. They just kept telling me I had to talk to Laura. I had to talk to Laura. And so it was in April of 2018 that I joined up with BKT. So in my first year in real estate, I think I did 45 transactions. And then, yeah, it's when I joined Laura in April, it just realized quickly that I couldn't stay by myself. Like I didn't have the support to do it by myself because I am dual career, which I think we're talking about that here in a little bit. But so yeah, and then I joined the team, and it's just been growing and going from there.
Okay, all right. So I'm gonna dig into that. First of all, let's see. Can everybody hear Judy okay? Or is it cutting in and out for anybody?
It's a little spotty for me.
Okay, wonder how we can fix that. Let's see.
Let me change rooms. I'm on the opposite side of my house from my Wi-Fi.
Because I really want to dig into this.
Hold on.
Yeah.
I have a friend
it
watching
might
my
be
kids at home.
your microphone, Judy, a little bit.
A microphone. See if I can find a set of headphones.
I love the hashtag taking down Washington.
Laura, you would get that. Yeah, I'm looking at the chat box while Judy is getting set up, and there's a lot of new business happening in Texas this week. It's pretty amazing. And
it's not that we're competitive or anything.
No, I'm sure they're going to watch this. I wonder what we're talking about. There we go. Okay, let's try it again, Judy. Let me see. Just say something, anything.
Can you hear me better now?
It's quiet, but it's let's see.
What about now?
Not yet. Hold on.
Okay, if I just hold my computer closer.
Hey, yes.
Okay.
There we go. All right. Okay, I'm going to go back to like the one thing that stood out to me, and I think it stood out to a lot of people. You started October 2017, and in 2017, you didn't have any deals, right?
I pinned some, but I had pinned 2, but I didn't have any closings.
Okay, no closings. And then, so you started actually on your own. You didn't start with a team.
Correct.
Okay, and how'd you get in touch with Laura?
I had a friend at the time that was on the BKT team that told me, that just kept insisting I had to talk to Laura. I had to get plugged in. If I wanted my business to grow, and so.
Wow. Okay, that's amazing. I mean, you may not have been here had someone not told you about it, and then we wouldn't be talking to you. That would have been sad. Okay. So then, what do you attribute to 2018 having so many sales in your first school year?
I would say there wasn't many people I met that I didn't have a conversation with that I was in real estate. I mean, my first deal, the first 2 deals I pended, one was 83,000 and the other one was 749. And that client has actually, I'm not gonna lie, I was terrified the whole time because it was my second deal and it was something at that price point. But that client, as it came through, they've sit there and referred me so much business. I mean, they've even came back and have been repeat customers and repeat business and sent me tons of referrals. And so and it happened to be just a conversation. It was a wife of someone that worked with my husband, and our kids went to school together. And I was like, yeah, I'm selling real estate. And she was like, we're thinking about moving to Midland. I was like, well, great, let's go look at houses. And I mean, they moved and lived in a house for 2 years, and we just recently, they upgraded and bought something that was just under 2 million and have sent me their parents to sell their houses. And so, yeah, just, if I talk to you that.
How do you get over, like, a lot of people that start out in the business, and even those who have been in the business for a while, how do you get over, like, just asking for the business, right? Like, what's your mindset around it, I guess?
I think even if they tell me no, they're still going to know that I'm there. So if something changes, it's going to kind of be in their back pocket that I'm in the business. I had a listing just this week. My husband laughs at me because I stalk Facebook. And if anybody talks about building a house or decluttering, I'm like, oh, hey, why are you decluttering? Like, what are you doing? You planning to move? And I just last week, one of my listings I took, they were talking about they were building a home, and I was like, oh, so are y'all going to be selling yours? You need a realtor? And she was like, no, we have one already. I'm like, oh, okay, great. Well, if anything changes, no, I'm here. And it was a week later, she called and she was like, hey, turns out we don't have the right realtor. You want to come talk to us? And we listed their house and it went under contract in 5 days. But so just even if they say no, like putting it out there so that they know I'm in real estate. Like I said, because that one, they just decided maybe the realtor they thought wasn't the right one. And then it turned into a listing and a pending in less than a week.
How often during the week do you, like, stalk Facebook?
Oh, frequently.
Like,
especially right now that I'm stuck at home.
Okay, so it's definitely an everyday thing for you.
Mm-hmm.
And then do you message them? Do you, like, DM them? Or, like, what do you do?
Both. If it's somebody I know to the point that, like, I have their cell phone number, I'll shoot them a text and be like, hey, what are you needing boxes for? Are you and the kids doing something? Are you moving? Or if I don't, then I'll just send them a message, just kind of as a friendly reminder, like, hey, don't forget.
Okay, perfect. So if you know them, you're going straight to text. If you don't have that relationship solidified, then it's just a DM that's a little bit less in your face. Would that be accurate?
Yeah. I would say it's straight to text, or I conveniently will have them over and be like, oh, hey, I saw.
You're very strategic then. So tell me, you found all this time to sell, a lot of properties in 2018, and you still had 4 kids at that time and still had another job. Walk us through that part.
A lot of emails and text messaging.
Okay.
So I usually, in a lot of late nights, I will say, I mean, it's just kind of getting up early before the kids to get emails and stuff. And I would find myself doing a lot of my prepping because for those that don't know, I'm a high school teacher. I teach high school history at a private school. So I teach juniors and seniors. So I would do a lot of my classroom prepping and that stuff at the end of the day. So when I would come to my lunch breaks and my conference at school, any real estate stuff that I couldn't have handled via email and via text message, like in between classes, I could use my conferences and my lunch break to make those calls, to do runnings. And I was always very upfront with my clients. It wasn't a secret that I had 2 jobs. So I would let them know, like, hey, yeah, if you want to see a house during the day, like, can we do, my conference is this. I showed a lot of houses on my teaching conference before I partnered up with Jordan. And so there was a lot of late night or a lot of evening showings and a lot of showings on my lunch break, showing on conferences. But like I said, it was always just an upfront deal. But I would always, like I said, a lot of my businesses came from the school too, because the teachers know I do it. I mean, our administration's super supportive about it, and they know we do it. And so I get a lot of real estate questions and business from my coworkers in that sense too.
Okay, so let me go back to one thing I heard is you said you set expectations essentially, right? So you would have a new client and that conversation sounded like, you know, when we see properties, my schedule is open between this and this, right? Like, so did you have people that are like, that's not going to work for me? Or like, what's the general consensus of people?
You know, honestly, most of them being upfront from the beginning were pretty like open about it. I did have one that said that he found another agent that was a better fit after I talked to him. But
so like one out of 100 like wasn't going to play your game, but everybody else would follow your schedule. And I want everybody to hear that, because you may not have a full-time history teacher job, but you have a life, right? And I'm not saying like don't be responsive. Judy is one of the most responsive people I know. Like when I text Judy, she's like texting me right back. So this isn't an excuse for like having like 2 or 3 hours worth of like reply time, right? But when you have a schedule and you have a family, it's okay to have a family and it's okay to have a schedule. And as long as you are upfront about it, like Judy is, like she's made it work to like an extremely high level, Judy. How do you handle them kids? Because you don't have one, and you don't have two, you don't have three. I think you have 4. How old are they?
So I tell people I had a moment of, or a couple of years there of insanity. So my kids are 8, 9, 6, and 5. We lost our minds for a little bit, on track, no more kids. We're good.
Okay. So tell us, like, do you have any home help? Like,
my husband's very supportive. Quarantine has taught me a lot about working with the kids there with me, for the fact of we usually in the summers and stuff hire a nanny to come stay with the kids because they're not at school. But this year we've ran into the fact that we're still running into issues on people wanting their kids out and stuff like that, even though Midland's not that bad. But so my husband's really supportive. I have my 8-year-old loves real estate. And so she is all about going to showings with me, and she loves open houses, and she'll come out all dressed up and hair fixed with bows in, like ready to go. So, I mean, I have occasionally had to take kids with me to showings. But I'd say the biggest thing is like my husband's really supportive. And then we have like a great friend group. Like one of them's actually sitting in my living room with the 3. I've got one at volleyball clinic, but the other 3 are in the other room. And so she came over to sit with them. So they weren't jumping on Power Up, because typically they want to see what everybody's seeing on Power Up.
So what I'm hearing is you have a support group that you have built so that you can be both a great history teacher, an awesome realtor, and can also be an awesome mom. Like, is that kind of like did your husband have a job? I imagine he does.
Yes, he is he's a operations manager for an oil company.
Okay. So it's not like he's sitting home just waiting, Judy, can I do this for you? Can I do that? Like, I just want people to understand that.
Yeah, no, he has been deemed essential, and like he hasn't stayed home at all during this quarantine. He's been at work every day.
Got it. So when you say supportive, a lot of what I hear is like he is supportive of your career. He's supportive of he is mentally, emotionally supportive. And when he can pick things up, he certainly does.
Yeah, there's a lot of days he comes in as I walk out, especially during this time. So he'll come in and it's like, hey, love you. This kid that has this one has this one has this. I'll be back in a couple hours, because there'll be like, and Jordan's awesome. Jordan's a big part of that as far as the support and what can get done too. So a lot of times if I don't.
In year 1, you didn't have Jordan, right? So in 2018, there was no Jordan and you made it work.
Yes, Jordan joined me in January of 19.
Okay, got it. So I'm going to walk back through 2017, you pended 2 deals, didn't close anything. 2018, how many did you close?
I think it was 45.
45. So once you closed 45, that gave you a big enough business where you could bring in a partner to work with you named Jordan, right? Okay.
Yes.
So tell me why you brought in Jordan. Like, what does Jordan do? Like, what did that look like for you?
So Jordan came on as a buyer's, like a showing assistant, not a buyer's agent, a showing assistant. And what that did is it freed up a lot of my evenings, because it was getting to the point, there were some days like I would get out of school, the kids had an after school program at school. I would get out of school, I would show till 5:30, pick them up at 5:30, drop them off, and then go show till 8 o'clock. And so that definitely freed up some more of my time, and it also made me able to focus more on listing and my lead generation versus every free second being out showing.
Okay. So essentially, like, what are some of the top things that Jordan assists you with? So we know showings for sure.
Mm-hmm. She does a lot of on expireds and things like that. She does a lot of my mail out letters. She's got really good at signing my name. And so she does a lot of the mail out to expireds and withdrawals. She does a lot of the meetings. So if we have inspections that come back and we need to get licensed professionals and foundation, electric, things like that, she does a lot of that, running and meeting on those.
I call myself good cop.
She does. She plays good cop.
Okay, so tell us for a second, how did you two meet?
So
I
Jordan
worked for another team at Keller.
Oh, I like it. Okay.
She was at another team at Keller, then left and went to Caldwell, and
We recruited her back.
we brought her back.
Okay, so really quickly then, Jordan, were you a showing partner at the other team, or were you like a buyer's agent on the other team?
I was actually a listing assistant on the other team.
Okay.
So I was a listing assistant for 3 years, just licensed assistant in the office almost all the time, but similar to this, I was good cop. I'm good at doing that. I get to call them and say, oh, hey, we got an offer on your house. And just like here, I get to run around and, oh, look at this house. Oh, this one doesn't look so good. You don't like it. Let's go to the next one. And Judy gets to have, and previously they get to have the hard conversations, the tough stuff. I just get to.
She gets to do the fun stuff.
Okay, perfect. That's awesome. Okay, so I wrote down showings, like your outbound, campaigns, like letters to expireds and withdrawals, meeting with vendors. Anything else? Go ahead.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, please.
So one thing I think is important to understand is that Jordan not only shows the houses, when they pick the house, Jordan writes the contract to put together the contract. Am I correct, Judy?
She does some of them. It just depends. A lot depends on where I'm at and what we're doing.
Who's available? If Judy's not available, then I can write a contract for her.
Who negotiates it?
Me.
Okay, so if it comes
Jordan
back,
doesn't. That's back to the bad cop thing. Jordan likes the happy stuff. She doesn't like arguing, so I do the negotiating and the arguing.
there we go. Okay, all right. Good cop, bad cop. It's a great relationship that works. Anybody have questions? I want to stop there just for a second. Questions on the showing partner role and the lead agent's role? I want to make sure that if we have any, we flush them out right now.
Thanks, Alicia.
Alicia says that she's good at confrontation.
Well, okay, Judy, what makes you good at confrontation?
So I think so. Prior to getting into real estate, I was a coach for 7 years. I was a assistant softball coach at a Division II university for 2 years, and then I was a head high school coach. So it was just kind of part of it. Like whether it was officials or what, you had to learn to disagree and be able to move on and stay professional about it. And
it's
so,
okay to disagree. Like, I
oh
think
yeah, absolutely.
people get really like worked up about like any disagreements. Disagreements are a part of life, and it's okay. You don't even have to be right. You know, you say your piece, and you let people be able to make a decision based on what you just shared with them. Okay, what about, tell us, okay, so when you say, I love, DJ, you had a question right now. He said, you know, define confrontation. Is it more about like setting expectations, or like what does confrontation in general look like in your business?
So more what I think is when you have deals that have curveballs, like being able to handle it in a professional manner, as well as fighting for what's in the best interest of your client. I mean, because what's in best interest of your client isn't always going to make the other agent on the other side happy. They're not necessarily going to agree, but just knowing as far as like the terms of the contract and what it means, and not willing to back down. I would say we have a couple realtors in town. I'm sure every town has it, that really will try, just because of time in the business versus you being in the business, will try to bully, and just not backing down and not being afraid of the confrontation to stand up for what's the best interest of your client.
I think sometimes it takes a few years for agents to understand that curveballs are just a part of life, right? Like whether it's real estate, whether it's real life, curveballs are they're gonna come at you. And the faster you get good at handling it, like the happier your life will be, because they're going to keep coming. Like there's very few perfect contracts. Like how many contracts do you have that are just so smooth? You're just like, oh my God, I just got paid for doing nothing, right? Like, does that happen every day?
Absolutely not.
Right. Because it's not like, that's not real estate. That's not even normal, right? Or we wouldn't be making the money we're making, right? Like we'd be making like, you know, $10 an hour if everything was easy. We never want it to be that easy, because it then allows for a tech company to come in, and then we're all out of a job, right? Okay, so I'm thinking about this, and you sold a lot of houses in 2018. 2019, you ended at what, 55 homes?
Mm-hmm.
And that was with Jordan's help, and you got some of your life back, right?
Yes.
Like a lot of it, a little bit of it, like what did that initially look like?
I got a little bit of it back. I mean, really a lot. So when we have buyer consultations, I introduced Jordan right off the bat, just so people know. And a lot of it freed me up a lot more to go on listing presentations, because I could be sitting at a listing presentation while Jordan was showing our buyers. So it made it to where I wasn't having to schedule buyers. I had that free time to focus on the listing and on that side in the evening, versus having to try to cram all of it in the evening.
What does that conversation, if I am a new buyer, what does it sound like when you introduce Jordan?
Yeah, so I just tell them that we're partners within our team, that we work together, that for the fact of how much business we have and how many clients, that with both of us, there's less of having to rescheduling and shifting, and we're able to accommodate more clients. And so they may see me, they may see her, but just to know that as far as the contract, and I'm upfront with them as far as the contract and all of that goes, that I'll be the one doing all their negotiation and everything. But there's a really good chance as far as being out in showings, Jordan's probably going to be the one there for the showing, because I could be having another meeting. And like I said, just once again upfront, that I do teach. I have 4 kids, so that's what works great. Jordan has Atlas, which is a cute chow chow, but that's one of the things that works, that she's got a lot more free time than I do. And so that's why we partnered up, is just to be able to better accommodate our clients.
Okay, so you're turning it into a benefit for the client, right? Mm-hmm. Like the client, when you said that, I didn't hear, okay, now I'm going to pass you off to Jordan, and when you find a house, Jordan's going to pass you back to me, and I'm going to negotiate. I didn't hear that. What I heard from you was, hey, like, I want you to get the best house on your terms, on your schedule. Jordan's available, and this is going to be amazing. I can't wait for you to find the perfect house, and Jordan's going to make sure she's available when that house is ready to go, so you don't miss out on it.
Yep, and we kind of use it as this is so many people that are like taking care of you. We've got all of our admin and people in the back that will be making sure your file gets pushed through to closing. We've got Jordan, who's available to show you almost anytime you want it. We've got Judy, who will be taking care of you and fighting for you in the negotiations. We kind of just give it as we have all these people that are working so hard to make sure you get the house that you want.
I love that.
And we right off the bat too, when any client that we have, especially if they're currently like house hunting and looking, we have a group text that's got me, the client, and Jordan. We're all on it. So if any chance, like I'm in a situation where like I can't get to it because I'm at a listing appointment, then Jordan can respond to it. And if Jordan's out showing and they're saying, hey, can we add this? Then I'm there and I can get it scheduled. So we have group text going with all of our clients that have both of us on it. Okay.
I love that. I love that. So is there at any point, Judy, because I know, that's a good, I'm going to go to you, Andrew's question in just a second. Is there any point, Judy, that people are like, or not people, but you are like, man, you know, like I want to, like, I just don't even want to touch the buyer. Is that your perspective at all?
No, I don't.
So you enjoy real estate and you enjoy like helping the client win. Is that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I enjoy it. Like I said, it's just, I'm a little busy like with kids and everything else. So yeah, no, I mean, and a lot of it just depends, like I said, who's free at the time for that client. I mean, there's times Jordan's showing the $1 million properties and she'll be in the middle of showing $1 million property and we'll get our buyer that's looking 140 that wants to see a house. And so I'll go show him because she's already scheduled. And then there's times it's vice versa, that she's got a day full showing buyers that are under 200 and we'll get somebody called that wants to see something at 7. And so I'll go show them. And so it's not, I don't like to work with them or anything. It's more just an availability and being able to get them in at the right time so that they don't miss out on something.
Got it. Perfect. And Alicia asked, do you ever have anyone that only wants to work with one of you?
Only if they're trying to get Jordan to date their son.
Okay. All right. Is it because you set up the expectations so well?
I think so. I mean, I can't think of anybody, and that was a joke between me and Jordan because of one of our clients, but I can't think of anybody that's ever wanted to work. I mean, but like I said, we set it up as that we're partners within our team. I mean, we have had a couple, I mean, there's been a few clients that I think like Jordan hasn't met. And honestly, we've had one client that I never met. It came in on a sign call. They were wanting to see something out of town. We did like a phone discussion of the buying process and it never failed. Every time he wanted to see something, I could not get to Monahans, which is a little town about 45 minutes to an hour from us. And so we seriously went through the whole process of group text and me walking him through the buying process via phone. And before we had all got super handy with this Zoom stuff, walking him through everything. I mean, we went from showing to contract to close, and I never physically met him in person. Jordan had all the contact, but that was the whole thing, that we were all in communication together because we were partners within our team. And so that's how it was worked. So.
Where does most of your business come from? Like if you were to break down like 2019 business, like what does that look like?
A lot of Sphere and Sphere referral, past client referral. I do have some like Op City and Brivity stuff in there, but I would say I'm probably, is Laura still on here? 65 to probably 65 to 70% Sphere. Is
Mm-hmm.
Robin on here? Robin, correct me if I'm wrong from the last couple of years. Probably 65 to 70% Sphere.
And what I want people to hear, Judy, is like it's easy to hear somebody, because I've done this. I've heard somebody say, yeah, like all my business comes from Sphere, and immediately, right, like what Ben always says, like we can't control our first thought, but we can control our second thought. My first thought is like a negative thought. that thought is, oh, she's special, I'm not, she must have something I don't have. But in getting to know you, it's not like, I mean, how many teachers out there have a real estate license and are not Judy? They don't do Judy's level of business, right? So what you've done in my mind is you have a farm, and your farm is that group of people at your school, and you absolutely work your farm and you develop rapport and relationships, and you become the expert that they can count on, and you're friendly, and you come from contribution, and it works. And all of a sudden this business just like erupts, right? But I know I can count right now probably 10 teachers who have a real estate license who are not Judy. And I want you guys to hear that what Judy has found is her niche, right? We all have somewhere we can go and develop that, right? Like Judy already had hers built in because she's a teacher, right? So she doesn't have like as much of a ramp up period that somebody else would have. But you can all like, we'll all be here 4 years from now, and you'll either have a Judy niche of some kind or you won't. And it'll completely depend on whether you do what Judy does.
Well, and I think one thing too, that even outside of the school, like I've found places to plug in and to make myself available. So we'll, like the company my husband works for, our kind of running joke is I'm their unofficial realtor. Like, so anytime, and sometimes it's just a conversation. Like the owner of the company, I did sell his house when I didn't have the buy side, unfortunately, because he was at dinner with another realtor in town. And he said, well, you know, it came across his phone while we were at dinner. So I kind of felt like he needed to help me with the purchase since we were sitting at dinner, but I want you to sell my house. But he's called me before and been like, hey, we're looking at hiring this CFO. Can you talk to him about the market? And same thing, my husband and I both played, I played college softball. My husband played college baseball at a university out here in Odessa. So we're plugged into that university, and we do donate back to the athletic program for the school just because we were both part of it. But I've built a relationship with their business department and their athletic department where they'll be like, hey, we made this new hire. Here's Judy's card. Hey, Judy, I need more cards. And they'll just send it. And we've had a couple times where the business department's been like, hey, we're interviewing this person will be in at this day. Can you show them around? And just building those relationships and going back to those connections just to put our name out there. So like they called and were like, hey, we've got our board for football. We'll cut you a deal for an advertisement. So I have an advertisement that plays at every football game that goes up on their board. And they just really push, hey, not only is she an alumni, she was a former player, but hey, look, she's a successful realtor. So if you're going to work for our school, support our alumni family kind of thing. But just those two have been big deals, as well as like reaching back out to that university since we only live 20 minutes away, as well as just, and like I said, and some of it doesn't pan out. Like some of it I'll sit there and have a 45-minute conversation and then the guy won't take the job. But just that resource, or show them around and then they don't come. So we spend an hour showing them and they didn't get the job. But just making it available to build those connections that you're willing to help them. And then it turns back to when they do come in, you get the job. I mean, I think just looking at staffs at UTPB, I think in the last year and a half, we've helped like 5 or 6 of the staff that came in and been hired by the school. We've helped them find houses.
Okay, so I hear you are very strategic in making sure that things that you're a part of, things that you care about, you're also visible to them.
Yeah, I use that as my touches, like making sure that I get those touches and I get those resources on it, because when they come to needing a realtor, I want me to be the one that they're going to think about.
Okay, so I'm going to plug in here because here's what I experience, and this is just on my team, and Dallas may be completely different and Midland might be completely different, but I almost feel like a good majority of our people are a little shy to like really promote themselves. And I don't want to say embarrassed too, but it's borderline that, like almost like being a realtor is not cool. So like, why would I even like go there? Like, I don't know. Casey, can you speak on that just real quick? Is that something like, do you see that, or is that my imagination?
Yeah, I think, well, especially for newer agents, right? I think we see a lot of our agents are a little bit pensive to start promoting themselves as a realtor when sometimes they don't even feel confident in being a realtor.
Like, how do you get over that, Judy? Like, or how did you get over it? Or was that even a concern for you? Is your mindset that you're here to help people, or like what?
So my mindset was I was here to help people, but I will be completely honest, especially my first year, the dreaded question on listing appointments and buyer consultation was I had a feeling the question was going to come up. So how long have you been in the business? And so I tried to keep, especially that first year, and then starting like full year 2, I tried to keep up to date with what my production was. So like I could come in and be like, oh, so how long have you been a realtor? And I could come in and be like, oh, well, I've been a realtor for, I'm going to chime in on that power of a team thing, because there's something I definitely talk about on that. But I talk about, I would come in and be like, yeah, well, I've only been in business for a year, but I did 45 transactions last year. Like, it's not like I sat there. When I do my buyer consultation, I always reference when I go through my buyer consultation as well, the whole team thing. And I talk to people like, you know, this is stuff I never thought about as an independent agent. I'm like, I laughed the first time I got a buyer that said, oh, my family's flying in from Saudi Arabia to pay cash for this house. I'm like, sure, they're related to the prince, is what I was thinking the whole conversation. No, really, they were located in Saudi Arabia, were flying in, paying cash for a house for their son and daughter, and flying back to Saudi Arabia. Like, and that's just the factor of things I never thought about individually. Jordan said it too here on this. So preaching the power of the team on it. And then as far as Midland money, yes, Andrew or Alicia, whichever one that is. But the knowledge on the factor of that is I would just try to make sure I was confident, especially in neighborhoods that I really chose to market. I would know the numbers, I would know the stats, I would know all of that before I went in. So I really farmed a neighborhood. I'm working on getting in it. There's a lot of us realtors in my new neighborhood, but my old neighborhood, I still farm it. I think we have 5 listings out there right now, 3 under contract and 2 active.
When you say farm, what does that look like for you?
I can tell you just about the number of, so the subdivision I'm talking about right now, there's 12 active listings. You have 5 under contract, and we've seen the average days on market in the last 6 months have went from about 5 days to we're looking at about 35 days on market right now. If it is priced right, it's still going under contract in the first week, but if you're not pricing it aggressively, you're seeing the days on market have about tripled. I mean, but
I think, Judy, I think she's trying to ask what is your process for farming? Like, what do you do specifically to get those clients?
Oh, gotcha. So I door knocked my entire neighborhood. There's about 300 houses, and I picked a weekend, and I lived in phase 2, and so the first weekend I door knocked the entire first phase, and I just did a market update, like average days on market. Under this square footage, you're looking at about an average price of this. Over this square footage, you're about an average price of this. And then just making myself available frequently on the neighborhood page. Like, hey guys, just, Facebook neighborhood page. Like, I would just post on it. Hey guys, if you're curious, taxes are coming up. Like, if you're wanting to protest your taxes, reach out. I don't mind sending you some comps. Hey, if you're thinking about moving and just curious about what your property value is, like, give me a call. I don't mind coming to visit with you. Like, and I would just occasionally just post market updates. Like, we only have 1.4 months of inventory on the market, so there's definitely buyers. I have a buyer wanting to move here, like just constantly updating like the people on the neighborhood page, and then door knocking that area and then making sure I have the stats available. So if we had a community event and they're like, oh, hey, you're Judy. I still actually to this day have one guy in the neighborhood that anytime I post about an open house, he comes to my open house just to talk what the market's doing. Like, he'll look at whatever house I'm in, because we'll coordinate like neighborhood open houses, and he'll look at what house I'm in, and he will come just to ask me market updates at whatever house I'm holding open.
I think something that's really important for everybody to know, that I think is really important. I have seen Judy be one of the most active agents on social media, not from a place of look at my open houses, look at my listings, come buy with me, come sell with me. No, she's always offering value to people in terms of what she's saying, like offering, let me do comps for you so you can protest your taxes. Let me run some numbers for you. Even if you have chosen another realtor, I will still do things to help you answer your questions so that in the future, if things don't work out, we already have an established relationship. And I think she does it in such a caring way that people don't ever feel that she's selling herself, even though she's just not, it doesn't come across that way. The other thing that's really important as her team leader that I see, Judy doesn't care if the client is $80,000 in Monaghan's or $1 million in the country club. She treats every client exactly the same way, at the same level of service, and she gets as excited about the $80,000 one as she does the $1 million one. And I think that that's very special. Like, I think that that's just makes her genuine.
I'm thinking like you've had two really stellar years, Judy. 2020, like what are your goals for 2020? What does that look like now?
One of my kids just woke up and they're being loud. I think when me and Laura were talking the other day, right now it's got me on track. Obviously I want to sell more than 55, but I think it had me on track at 75 was what I was on track for. Corona did obviously throw a few curveballs there, but I mean, I think Corona has also been, and like the pandemic has also been, like you've had to get creative and just find new ways to do business. And so that's definitely still wanting to hit at least the 65 to 75 on it. I think I was counting today right now. Jordan and I have, I think it's 12 pendings right now, and we have 9 active listings, and we have 4 buyers that are pre-qualified and looking. And so just wanting to make sure that not to use this pandemic as a crutch, but still to see my business continue to grow, even though we've had to find new creative ways.
Is there anything specific that would increase your business from 55 to say 75 over the course of this year?
Like anything in particular and like what I'm doing?
Yeah. Like where are those extra 20 people, I guess, coming from this year?
So I would definitely say a lot of people, I call it like kind of your fly-by-nights for the neighborhood. So knowing like my friends and family group, they're like, hey, I still have my house in Louisiana. Like, and then trying to watch like moves and major job changes and things like that and approach them from a sense of compassion and trying to help versus just like, oh, you got laid off, let me sell your house. But finding a way to approach that in a way of how can I help you at this time, even if it's not something like that, like, hey, let me give you advice on forbearance and asking like what calls you can make as far as to help your lender if you're trying to find something, but just focusing on our economy and like our friends group and shifts that have happened, as well as I've done a lot of reaching out to, we here in West Texas a lot, but I don't have that oil field money. And so I have spent a lot of time on my prospecting for buyers, reaching out to my nurse friends, my teacher friends, my cop friends, firefighter friends, going, hey, guess what? You don't have to have that oil field money. Like you told me you were pre-qualified for 200. This time last year, if I sent you houses under 200 that would sell FHA, we had 3. Guess what? I just ran a search and houses under 200 that'll sell FHA, we have 22 now, or whatever the number is. But I've really done a lot of my prospecting and reaching out to that group, because they don't have to say, but I don't have that oil field money, because right now a lot of people that have that oil field money, as they would say for West Texas, they're not looking in that price range, because those are the people that are nervous if another round of layoffs come, that they could be at risk.
Okay, so what I heard you say is you are targeting a specific set of clients, and you're coming from contribution that sounds different from last year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, because I think in that group, years before, those people that Judy's referencing, they did not stand a chance because everything was selling multiple offers, less than
Paying
24
over
hours,
appraisal.
over appraisal price, and they just people and nurses salaries, teacher salaries just didn't stand a chance. And so Judy's strategy I thought was brilliant of telling people, hey, come out of the woodwork. Not only are interest rates amazing right now, but you actually have a fighting chance, because those people with the oil field money are holding off. They are hesitant because they don't know if they're going to have a job. So right now is when you pull the trigger. And that was brilliant because she planted so many seeds that are paying off right now.
Especially because like DR Horton down here, I don't know what they're doing in the other areas, but down here, DR Horton is, depending on the subdivision, is doing anywhere from 4 to 6% realtor commission. And they're doing, I think it's like 8,000 or 9,000 in closing. But if you're in any of those fields, they're giving you another $1,000 towards closing or upgrades. So really, like, hey, here's our opportunity to get you. Hey, look, they just keep dropping the price. Oh, hey, they're taking offers on these brand new homes that'll be ready in a month, and they'll cover all your closing costs. And so 70% actually.
So what I want everybody to hear, no matter what area you're in, figure out where are your opportunities, right? Is it with sellers? If so, what does that conversation look like? What's changed year over year that you can go back to these sellers and say, hey, here's why you need to relook at selling? Is it buyers? What subset demographic of buyers? What's changed, and how can you go target those people to make their real estate dreams come true, right? Everybody's got to live somewhere. They're going to lease or they're going to buy, and you want to be the one to help them. Casey asked a really great question.
Yeah.
Your active business right now is primarily listings. Is that pretty typical for you?
Yeah, so it's typical for me for more of my business, I feel like, to be on the listing side. I mean, I do take buyers. I love buyers. Like, I love the excitement, especially for like first time home buyers. But I do take a lot of listings, and a lot of it's not typical for that many to be active at one time. Like, that's something totally new. And I think a big part of that is a lot of my listings right now are newer constructions. And because we're battling all the perks and benefits that the new builds are, I mean, this has been the first time. Typically, if you wanted to do even a semi-custom in Midland, you're looking a minimum of 10 months to a year and a half. And right now they have all these houses like ready to go. So you're really having to price drop and price really aggressively on new construction resales, because for the first time in 2 years, we're having to compete with brand new construction.
Can I ask you a question on that? Like, obviously the market has shifted from last year. You probably sold everything in like 1 week. Now you're on the market, 30 days, pretty consistently, probably, I would say. So what does that conversation sound like with the sellers so that you set the proper expectation? What are you saying to sellers right now?
I mean, just make sure that they're aware, like, we are in a different market. I mean, I think when I looked at it yesterday, Midland was at like 780 active listings. And just like, hey, this time last year, we only had 200 active listings. Right now, we're at almost 800. So there is more inventory. People aren't jumping right off the bat to get something under contract. And just so that they know that people are taking their time a little bit more right now, because they do have more options. It's not they looked at everything on the market in their price range in one day and that's it. I mean, if they want to look at multiple houses, they can spread it out over two. And I also set up the expectation that it depends on your price point. Like, if you're under 250 right now, like, that's still moving. I listed one that was 205 and one that was 225 last week, and they both were under contract in like 5 days. When we're talking like 12, 15 showings, but that stuff that's over that 250 marker, just letting them know ahead of time that price range isn't moving as fast, even sometimes priced aggressively right now, just because of the amount of inventory and the options they have.
So what I hear you saying is that you, like Ben was saying earlier this week, like, your stats. You're walking into that listing appointment knowing the days on market for Midland, knowing the days on market for that neighborhood, and you're not afraid to share that news with them, like you feel like it's your responsibility to do so. So then the client doesn't feel like you're over promising anything, and you're comparing and contrasting to the year before. Like, you know, we have like, you know, 40 days, you know, more like days on market comparatively. So make sure you're doing that, because some of your areas, depending on price point, are going to be a little bit different. And one thing that we talked about in Austin was there's always 3 markets. There's always a buyer's market, there's always a balanced market, there's always a seller's market. The question is, what area has each market, and like what price point? Like above 1.5 million is going to be a different market from 150,000. And you've got to have those conversations early on with the client. Otherwise, you have resentful conversations later.
Yeah.
Question for you, Judy. Since we talked about Jordan, are you comfortable sharing what that compensation model looks like with Jordan?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a couple of different things we do. So if it's, I'm gonna have to think about how it works. If it's under 300, it's a 10%. If it's over 300, it's a 15%. Jordan doesn't take listings, she just does buyers. So if she gets a sphere referral for a listing, then she gets a bonus. And then but there's some benefit to her too on it, because I don't like double siding stuff. It's just, I've done it before and some people love it and do it all the time. It just, you know, there's some things in transactions you can't handle, and I don't ever want a client, because I get so much of my business from client referrals. Like, I don't ever want a client to think I favor this other client over them. So if I do ever have a buyer, because Jordan can take her own buyers, if she produces them at open houses and things like that, she is allowed to take her own buyers. But if I ever have a buyer that is interested in one of my listings, then she represents that buyer. We just terminate my buyer rep with them, and Jordan picks up a buyer rep, and Jordan represents that buyer. So there is some buyers that she turns around, and then it's just vice versa. So if Jordan's representing the buyer, then I get 10% of her commission. We just flip it.
Okay, got it. And when you say,
part of that is because Jordan puts up with all the cheerleading stuff for my children, because I am not a cheer or dance mom, and my kids love it. So
that works. When you say 10%, is that 10% of Judy's cut, or is it 10% of the team, like the whole thing? GCI.
10% of the, it's 10% of the whole thing.
Okay, perfect. I'm gonna mute somebody real quick. Okay. Wrapping up, Judy, is there anything that I haven't asked you that you'd love to share with the group? Like anything that would be beneficial for them to know about you, about the way you've built your business, anything like that?
I think it's just, don't be afraid. Like, don't be worried about what you do, or be afraid to talk to people about what you do. Like I said, it really is a running joke to my husband. Can we not go anywhere without you having a real estate conversation? I liked how Ben talked about having stuff in your pocket, because I really try to keep listings in my pocket. And my husband always jokes that if you mention real estate to me, you're opening a floodgate. And so it's like, once you mention you're looking at a house, and once you mention that you want to see one, like, I'm going to send you houses. Even if you just ask questions about one and we go see one and you tell me it's got to be the perfect house for you to want to buy it. Like, you're about to get an email or a text message from me in regards to every house that checks off your boxes that you told me. If I don't think you're looking at my email, I'm going to copy and paste it, and I'm going to send you a text link for everything that. And I use my BKT email for everything. Even if I'm having a conversation with a realtor that they're like, hey, I'm out showing, send me that house that you were telling me about, because they showed a property that didn't quite work, but I have something similar. I even send the realtor my BKT link, my BKT website link for the house. I'm like, yeah, here it is. So I use that for everything, just in regards to traffic, and for it to be able to go back to Brivity and log into that. But because if they're asking you a question about real estate, even if they say we're not looking right now, there's a part of them that would like to change something. And it may be, I mean, I've got a couple buyers that we look here or there, especially when you look in that $1 million price range. Like, they obviously like what they have right now, and if they're going to make a move, or anybody even spending over $500,000, honestly. But so it may be you show a house here and you don't show them another house for 2 weeks, and then you show them one. But just kind of making sure you're keeping up with those people. And even if they say, oh, we're not really looking, like if something comes up that fits that box, make sure it gets in front of them. Like make sure they see it. Even if they say, oh, that's cool, but we don't like this. Okay, cool. Well, then the next one that checks off the majority of boxes, you're going to get another text from me with it. And so just.
I love that. You have a high intensity, like, and a high passion for this, right? And it really shows through. And we always know that the person with the most passion wins. Like, it's a true statement. You put two people at a table together, and the person with the most passion will win every time. And you've got such a great passion. It was so cool to hear your journey, and how you started in 2017, and then 2018 just knocked it out of the park. 2019 added leverage, and 2020, it sounds like, I love how much seller business you're doing. I think most people are doing, 20 or 30% seller business, and you seem to be doing a heck of a lot more. And I see how that focus is developing your business even further. I love that.
I think one thing that pushed it, and just for anybody that's like new or was hesitant about it or is interested in it, when I first mentioned getting into real estate, it was after a transaction that I had where my house was on the market, and I actually like put the buyer in contact with my realtor, put it under contract, and it terminated at like 4:30 of day 10. And I was like, you know what? But I was told by multiple people when I got started on it that I could never be successful doing it dual career. And that was kind of like a watch me, like I'm gonna prove you wrong, because you can do it and you can be successful. But just like that kind of lit the fire there to be like, let me just show you that you're saying I can't do it and I can't be successful on it.
I love that. Judy, you are a doll. You're like, you're so passionate. I love you so much. And it was really, really great to hear your story. And Jordan, we got to hear a little bit from Jordan today. I didn't expect that. That was exciting. Anybody have any last minute questions? If you do, post them in the chat. Meanwhile, you want to put the following date on your calendar, June 18th. I've got a few people that I'm lining up for. If you remember what Ben said, there is a fight for sellers. There's a big fight for sellers. We've got to get them, right? There's a lack of listing inventory in a lot of our cities. And even if there's not a lack of inventory in your city, like, you should be the one who has the seller. Like, the person who has the inventory is the one who controls the market. So think of it like a store. If you don't have inventory in your store, you don't have a store. So you got to have listings. And so that's going to be all just seller focused of how to generate more seller appointments, how to take more seller listings, right? So that one's going to be just focused on sellers. So that's June 18th, because what we want to do is we want to have this summer momentum and just capitalize on summer momentum to take more sellers. All right.
So yes. I see one question, but there was one thing I was going to say about sellers. So there is one thing I challenge myself. If I go on a listing appointment and I don't get it, like, I try my dangest to bring the buyer on it. So just like, hey, look, like, I didn't list your house, but hey, look, I still sold your house. And so Jordan even had one of the sellers that was a friend of mine that didn't go with me, gave her a hard time when she was meeting a foundation guy and he was mowing the yard. And I'm like, yeah, look, you didn't list your house with me, but hey, look, I still brought the buyer for your house. As far as Elizabeth's question, what we're looking at right now is working with our VAs on trying to take some of the scheduling load off, because we've ran into a couple crunches during the last couple months where Jordan's showing, I'm at an appointment, or we're both out showing, and we get a client that sends us a list of houses that they want to see that day. But as far as mapping it out so we're not driving all over town trying to show it, bringing in one of the VAs a few hours a day to help us just when we're both tied up to help on scheduling. especially showings and getting showing time set up, and then sending us out the update with the showing details. So that's kind of the next step that we're in the process on working on. We still have some like details to work out with that, but just getting one of the VAs involved on helping us schedule when we're both out and about doing stuff, so we don't run into that delay, because we have several times the last month both been showing or both been at appointments where we can't stop what we're doing to get them on the schedule for later that day. So if the houses they want to see need a 2-hour notice and we can't even stop for another hour, then we're running into, we can't even get everything in before 8 o'clock.
So what I hear you saying is, for you to keep your level of service high as it is, like that's the best thing for you to do, is to have a VA for a couple hours who helps you keep that level of service for your client high. I love that. And that's such a good filter to like run everything through, right? You build a big business big enough, and then when that happens, like a lot of people don't want to build a business that's big because they have a fear that they won't be able to do XYZ anymore, right? Like, or that like their service will go down. Actually, your service goes up because you're able to get help. I love that. Good job, Judy. I love that, Jordan. Jordan and Judy, you guys are awesome. Man, actually, we'd love to have you guys back on like at the end of the year and see how it pans out for you guys. And then what's been happening. So I thank you guys all in Texas, and we will see you again June 18th to talk about sellers and how we're going to just capitalize on getting more sellers. And you guys have a good rest of your day, and I'll see everybody probably on the Chris Suarez call tomorrow. If you guys aren't on the Chris Suarez calls every Friday, you guys, he's the polar opposite of Ben. Like we always joke about that. Like Ben is like this one like kind of person, and then you've got Chris, who goes real deep in one specific subject, and both are so valuable. So can't wait to see you guys, and reach out to Judy. She's on Facebook, as you guys know, and you can find her there, and she'll be glad to help. Thanks so much, ladies, and I'll see everybody later.
Thank
Bye.
you for doing this.
Thank
you.
Bye.
Thank you.